I'm going to tell you something that may be harming your body. And the worst part is that perhaps you haven't even noticed it. Everything you do, from small daily decisions to habits that you repeat without thinking, is leaving traces on your health. But don't worry, it's not too late to change it. I want you to pay close attention to what is coming, because in the next few minutes, I am going to reveal to you profound teachings that have gone unnoticed by most of us, but that have the power to transform your life. It is not just theory. It is something that you can begin to apply starting today. What I am going to tell you is the key you need to understand how your body and your mind are connected in ways that you cannot even imagine. Are you ready? What is coming may surprise you. If these types of videos resonate with you and inspire you, I would appreciate it if you left a like. It's a small gesture that really helps us a lot to continue creating more content like this. The sound of the train was hypnotic, a constant swing that made it seem like the world outside had stopped existing. Lucas looked out the window while the landscape of the town passed by. The exhaustion was fading. It invaded him. He no longer remembered when was the last time he had slept 8 hours in a row. The frenetic pace of his life had reduced him to a colorless version of himself. A body that was half-functioning, but that kept going by pure inertia. Next to him, an older man sat in the seat, relaxed, with his eyes half-closed, as if the train didn't affect him. He had a beard, unkempt but not scruffy, and a palpable calm that almost bothered Lucas. How could someone be so calm when the world was moving so fast? "Do you feel tired?" the man suddenly asked without even opening his eyes. Lucas, surprised, took a second to respond. "Yes, a little," he murmured, not wanting to start a conversation. He didn't know this man, and he didn't like someone reading his life as if it was so obvious. However, the man continued speaking with a calmness that began to disarm him. "We have been living so disconnected that we don't even realize how it affects us, as if tiredness were part of life, when in reality, it is a symptom of something much deeper." Lucas didn't know how to respond. The man's words were strange, but there was something in his tone that made Lucas want to keep listening. "Look out the window," the man told him. "Do you see that light? The light of the sun is what you're missing." Lucas looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "How am I missing light? I go outside as much as I can." The man shook his head, finally opening his eyes. "It's not about how much time you spend under the sun. It's about when you do it. If you sleep irregular hours, if you're surrounded by artificial lights when you should be resting, you're disconnecting from your most basic rhythm, your internal clock. That imbalance not only causes fatigue, it wears you down from the inside out, on a cellular level." Lucas couldn't help but laugh softly. "On a cellular level? That sounds like something an internet charlatan would say." The man looked him straight in the eyes with an intensity that made him feel uncomfortable. "The ancients knew it, but we've forgotten. The body is connected to the light of day and the darkness of night. Sleeping poorly isn't just an inconvenience, it's a slow poison." "It's not just tiredness," the man continued. "Your cells are trying to regenerate in the chaos of your schedule. If you don't fix it, that chaos is going to consume you." Lucas shifted in his seat. What the man was saying sounded crazy, but Lucas couldn't shake the memory of his sleepless nights, the light from his phone illuminating his face as he forced himself to finish another report or another presentation. In recent months, fatigue had become something he couldn't shake off, no matter how much coffee he drank. It was like an invisible anchor. Every morning, before anything else, go outside and feel the first rays of sunlight. The man said, let your body remember the natural rhythm, the signal that tells it when to wake up and when to sleep. And at night, avoid bright lights. Let the darkness envelop you as it should. Your body is wiser than you think. You just have to listen to it. Lucas blinked, absorbing what the man was telling him. It seemed too simple to be true. But then the train stopped, and the man stood up without haste. Before leaving, he let one last sentence fall into the air without turning around. Don't do it for me. Do it for yourself. Try it for a week, and then tell me. Lucas followed him with his eyes until he was lost in the crowd at the station. He stood there, feeling confusion mixed with curiosity. Who was that man? He hadn't introduced himself, nor left a card or anything that would identify him. He wasn't a teacher or a guru, just someone who seemed to know more than he let on. That night, Lucas turned off his phone an hour earlier than usual. He stayed in the darkness of his room, without artificial light, waiting for sleep. Strangely, it was easier than he expected. When he woke up, it was right at dawn, something he hadn't done in years. He went out to the balcony and let the morning sun hit him. On the first day, there were no drastic changes, but something inside him began to shift. Like rusty machinery slowly coming back to life, his body was responding. And although he still felt tired, the fatigue didn't seem as desperate as before. The following days, he continued the routine, waking up with the sun, avoiding strong lights at night. Slowly, he began to notice that something inside him was starting to heal. If this video is giving you value, subscribe to the channel now, and you will not regret it. We promise you extraordinary content that will not only enrich your life, but will elevate it to a completely new level. Don't miss the opportunity to transform your health with our ancestral wisdom. Let's continue. The train moved forward, the landscape flying by. But Lucas felt different. It was as if in recent days, everything around him had slowed down. He had followed the recommendations of the man he had met by chance. Get up with the sun. Let natural light guide you. Avoid screens at night. At first, it had seemed absurd, but after 7 days, the change was undeniable. He slept better, his thoughts were clearer, and the fatigue that had weighed him down for so long was fading. The most curious thing was that Lucas couldn't stop thinking about the man on the train. Who was he? And why had he spoken to him? It was as if he had known exactly what Lucas was going through. Lucas wondered if he would see him again, and if so, what else he could show him. The train stopped at the next station, and to Lucas's surprise, there he was again, sitting in the same seat as before, this time with a small paper bag. I see you're back, said the man without taking his eyes off the window. And I see you too, Lucas replied, smiling slightly, although the intrigue was consuming him. Things aren't just about the light, the man continued, turning his head towards Lucas. It's also about what happens inside you. Tell me, have you ever thought about how what you eat affects how you feel? Lucas thought about the fast food, the heavy dinners in front of his computer that left him feeling drained. But it wasn't just that. There was something deeper, as if his digestion was a reflection of the confusion that inhabited his mind. What's in your stomach affects more than you think, the man continued. He handed Lucas the paper bag. Inside, Lucas found a small bottle of capsules next to a bottle of kombucha. Do you know what the gut-brain axis is? Lucas shook his head. It's more important than most people realize. Your gut is full of millions of bacteria, not just to digest food, but with a direct connection to your brain. They influence your mood, your energy, even how you perceive the world. If your microbiota is unbalanced, it can cause anxiety, depression, and no matter how much sleep you get or how much sun you soak in, your mind will remain in chaos. Lucas, intrigued, lifted the kombucha, sniffed it, and then looked at the capsules. "What is this?" he asked. "Psychobiotics," the man replied with a small smile. "Probiotics designed to improve your mood. But this is only a small part. You need to take care of your microbiota, feed it well, balance it, and when you do, you'll see how your mind begins to clear up even more." Lucas had always believed that his mood was tied solely to his thoughts and worries. But the idea that something as physical as his gut could have such power made sense. In recent days, he had noticed that when he ate better, he felt better, as if his body flowed with new energy instead of resisting it. Lucas was left thinking about that. He had always believed that his mood depended solely on his thoughts and his worries. But the idea that something as physical as his gut could hold such power over his emotional state resonated. In recent days, he had noticed that when he ate better, his energy felt smoother, less resistant, as if instead of fighting his body, it was flowing with renewed strength. "And how do I begin to improve my microbiota?" Lucas asked, still skeptical but willing to try. The man looked out the window for a second before answering. "Feed the good bacteria. Probiotics, like that kombucha. Fermented foods will help balance the good bacteria in your gut. But you also need to avoid sugar, processed flours. All that only feeds the bacteria that harm you. Think of your gut like a garden, Lucas. If you take good care of it, what will flourish is well-being. But if you neglect it, weeds will grow and poison your mind." The train arrived at another stop, and the man once again stood up to leave. Lucas wanted to ask him his name, but before he could speak, the man turned slightly and added, "Next time you see me, you'll notice the chaos in your mind will be even clearer. Just make sure you don't abandon what you're starting to build." And with that, he left. Lucas stayed behind, holding the kombucha and the capsules, contemplating the mystery surrounding this man. It intrigued him, but it also motivated him to follow the advice. Although they seemed so simple, Lucas decided that he would immediately start incorporating fermented foods into his diet and reduce the foods that he knew only filled him with emptiness. Over the next few days, he followed the instructions to the letter. He introduced probiotics into his routine, drank kombucha, and ate natural yogurt. Slowly, he made sure that his gut was receiving what it truly needed. The interesting part was that as his body started to feel more balanced, his mind did too. The emotions that used to overwhelm him began to feel lighter. It was as if by balancing his physical body, his mind also found equilibrium. In moments of anxiety, he remembered what the man had said about the connection between the gut and the brain, and little by little, the feeling of chaos began to dissipate. It wasn't immediate, nor was it miraculous. But with each day, Lucas felt that his mental energy was improving. One morning, after having a plate of fruit and a glass of kefir for breakfast, he went for an early walk, taking advantage of the morning sun. It had been a week since his last encounter with the man on the train, and although he didn't know when he would see him again, something inside him told him that a new teaching was just around the corner. The mystery surrounding the man kept Lucas alert and expectant. Every time he got on the train, he looked around, wondering what other pieces of the puzzle were left to discover. The 7th day arrived without Lucas seeing the man again. But that morning, something felt different. He woke up with an unusual sense of calm, as if for the first time in a long time, his body and mind were in sync. He wasn't expecting the overwhelming fatigue that used to invade him after each night, not even the dense cloud of thoughts that kept him scattered. He felt lighter, more focused. He got on the train, and this time, he didn't feel the need to search for the mysterious man. He had learned to release expectations and live a little more in the moment. And that's when, just as he stopped looking for him, he saw him again, sitting at the back of the carriage, as if he had always been there. Lucas smiled to himself and slowly walked toward him. When he sat down next to him, the man was already waiting for him with that serenity that was becoming familiar. This time, Lucas was the first to speak. "I've been following your advice," he said. "Taking care of what I eat, paying attention to light, the cycle of the day and night, and I feel better, clearer. But I still have the feeling that something is missing, something I don't fully understand." The man nodded, as if he already knew what Lucas was going to say. "You've already taken important steps, but you still need to understand something essential. Everything I've taught you so far is related to your connection with the outside world, light, food, balance. But there's something you cannot see or feel directly. It's what's happening inside you, energetically." Lucas frowned, waiting for an explanation. The man paused before continuing. "There is an invisible network that connects every part of your body, an electrical flow that keeps everything functioning harmoniously. But when that flow is interrupted, when you don't nurture it or neglect it, it's as if a part of you starts to fail. And I'm not just talking about your physical health, but about your emotional balance, your ability to heal and feel whole." Lucas remained silent. It wasn't the first time he had heard something like that. But coming from this man, it felt different. It was as if his words resonated beyond what was being said. "And how do I take care of that?" Lucas asked, intrigued. The man gave a slight smile. "The earth. Contact with it. Your body is charged with energy, but if you spend all day surrounded by electronic devices in closed buildings, you disconnect from the natural source that regulates it. Walking barefoot on the earth, on grass or sand, helps balance your bioelectric field. We call it grounding or earthing. It's not complicated, but it's one of the most forgotten practices in our modern society." Lucas looked at his shoes, almost in disbelief. The simplicity of the advice left him baffled. "That's all? Just walking barefoot?" The man nodded slowly. "Just that. Let the earth give you back what you've lost. Try it, and you'll notice how your body and mind will feel lighter. It's the oldest balance that exists." Lucas didn't know what to expect from that practice, but something inside him told him that there was more to those words than met the eye. It was an intuitive feeling, as if every time he talked to this man, a veil was lifted from his eyes, showing him a truth that had always been there, but he had never clearly seen. As the days went by, Lucas began to incorporate this new practice into his routine. At first, walking barefoot through his garden felt strange, uncomfortable even. But soon that feeling faded. Every morning, after feeling the sun on his skin, he spent a few minutes connecting with the earth. Initially, he didn't notice any immediate changes, but slowly, a deeper calm began to settle in his body. His energy felt more stable, as if something invisible inside him had aligned. There was no magic in any of this, Lucas thought. just a natural truth he had forgotten. The man's teachings weren't miraculous recipes. They were reminders of the essentials. Light, air, earth. These were parts of him, and now he understood them better than ever before. One afternoon, after a long day at work, Lucas boarded the train, feeling more connected than ever. He looked out the window, the sun setting on the horizon, and just before the train pulled away from the station, the man appeared again, this time sitting in front of him. Lucas was no longer surprised. Now, he understood that their meetings didn't depend on time or place. The man appeared when necessary. "It seems like you've come a long way," the man said with a slight smile. Lucas nodded. "I feel better, more balanced, but there's still something I can't fully resolve. At times I feel a restlessness I can't control." The man leaned forward slightly, his gaze penetrating beyond the visible. "What you're feeling has to do with your breathing. Most of us breathe poorly, shallowly, and we don't give it much importance. But proper breathing not only oxygenates the body, it cleanses and detoxifies every cell." "What kind of breathing?" Lucas asked, intrigued. "Diaphragmatic breathing," the man responded. "Breathe deeply, sending air to the lowest part of your lungs. This allows your body to relax completely, oxygenate fully, and release toxins. It's powerful, though many underestimate it. Do it consciously, and you'll notice how your body begins to heal from within." Lucas listened intently. He was learning to take things one step at a time. The man's words resonated with Lucas. Breathing was something so natural, so basic. Yet he had never truly paid attention to it. He had always taken it for granted, as most people did. But now, he realized that even something as simple as breathing could have profound effects on his well-being. "You said proper breathing can cleanse the body, but how do I do it consciously?" Lucas asked. "Start by focusing on your breath," the man said calmly. "Place one hand on your stomach and one on your chest. When you inhale, make sure your stomach expands rather than your chest. That way you're engaging your diaphragm, which allows you to take in more oxygen. Exhale slowly, fully, and with intention. As you do this, you'll feel a wave of relaxation sweep over your body." Lucas nodded, eager to try it. He had always been one to breathe quickly and shallowly, especially when stressed or anxious. Now he was being asked to slow down, to be deliberate with every breath. "For now, just practice it when you can," the man continued. "The more you do it, the more natural it will become. Eventually it'll be second nature, and you'll notice how much calmer and centered you feel." Lucas thanked the man, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. He had learned so much in these encounters, and each time, the lessons were simpler, yet more profound. It wasn't about making drastic changes. It was about reconnecting with the most basic elements of life: light, breath, earth. The train stopped again, and as usual, the man stood up to leave. But before he walked away, he paused and said, "Remember, Lucas, you're healing from the inside out. Everything you're doing is creating a ripple effect, and it's reaching deeper than you realize. Keep going." With that, the man disappeared into the crowd once again, leaving Lucas to process the latest lesson. Over the following days, Lucas practiced the breathing techniques the man had taught him. At first, it felt unnatural, but as he continued, he began to feel the difference. His breaths were deeper, more controlled, and with each inhale and exhale, he could feel the tension in his body slowly release. He noticed that even during stressful moments at work, he could calm himself simply by focusing on his breath. One morning, after a particularly restful night, Lucas woke up feeling refreshed. He went through his usual routine, exposing himself to natural light, grounding his body by walking barefoot, and practicing diaphragmatic breathing. As he sat in his garden, breathing deeply, he realized just how much had changed since his first encounter with the man on the train. His body felt more balanced, his mind clearer. The overwhelming fatigue that used to plague him was now a distant memory. Even his emotional state had improved. He was less anxious, more at peace. But there was still something lingering, something he hadn't addressed yet. As Lucas sat there, his thoughts drifted back to the conflict with his brother. It was an unresolved issue that he had buried deep within him, hoping it would disappear with time. But it hadn't. In fact, it had festered, manifesting as tension in his body and mind. The man's words echoed in his mind. It's not just about what you eat or drink or breathe. It's about what you keep inside. Lucas knew he had reached a new phase in his journey. He had been so focused on healing his body that he had neglected the emotional wounds he carried. The time had come to confront them, to finally let go of the past and heal fully. He picked up his phone and stared at it for a moment before dialing his brother's number. It had been years since they had spoken. The call rang a few times before his brother answered, surprised to hear Lucas's voice. There was an awkward pause, but Lucas, now more at peace with himself, spoke calmly. He didn't expect to resolve everything in one call, but simply opening the door to communication felt like a relief. It was the first step toward healing a wound that had been festering for far too long. In the days that followed, Lucas continued with his new practices, exposing himself to light, grounding, breathing, and now, emotional release. Little by little, he felt his life returning to balance. Not just physically, but emotionally too. The work was still demanding, and life's challenges hadn't disappeared, but the way Lucas approached them had completely changed. One day, on his usual train journey, Lucas saw the man again, but this time, there was something different. There was no new lesson to learn, no mystery to solve. They simply sat together in silence as the train moved forward. Lucas understood then that he didn't need any more teachings. He had everything he needed within him now. The man, with his usual serene smile, finally broke the silence. You've done well, Lucas. Remember, everything you need is already within you. You just have to learn to listen. With those words, the man stood up and left the carriage. But this time, Lucas didn't feel the usual sense of loss. He knew that even though the journey would continue, he had already found the answers he had been searching for. He had learned to reconnect with his body, his emotions, and the world around him. And most importantly, he had learned to listen to himself. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What part of this story resonated with you the most? What made you think differently? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm eager to read about your experiences. And if you're looking for more ancient wisdom to transform your health and life, I invite you to check out my video on 8 self-healing techniques that can truly make a difference. See you there.